me to the end. I feel like a fool, not seeing it all, and there was nothing to do till you came along. I've been rocking to the sound of your voice. I like it. Yo, let us stay alive. Girl feels alright, right.
All right, thank you all for tuning in to WGAC 98.3 FM, your voice and music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I'm a licensed certified public accountant. I am a serial entrepreneur as well as a wealth multiplier, and I'm the CEO and founder of Badu Enterprises, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. And what we do is we provide a suite of financial services such as tax preparation, financial consulting, credit repair, things of that nature. Today we'll be talking about the process or the steps in order to purchase your first home. Of course, this can be your second home, third home, but ultimately this is truly the process. When you're buying your first home, I remember when I bought my first home about 3 or so years ago. Actually, it was about, just roughly about 3 or so years ago. I had to go through some of these steps in order to buy this home. Before we do that, let's kick it off with the market report. This report is as of October 18, 2019, so as of last Friday. For the second week in a row, each of the benchmark indexes essentially posted gains last week. Stocks got a boost from some strong third quarter earnings reports as several large financial institutions recorded strong earnings. The S&P 500 came close to reaching its record high earlier in the week, while the small caps of the Russell 2000 surged ahead by more than 1.5%. Long-term treasuries saw yields fall slightly as prices inched up on news of another stalemate on the new attempts to reach a Brexit accord. So there's a Brexit deal or Brexit discussion going on right now, and weak U.S. retail figures. Oil prices dropped from $54.77 per barrel to $53.71 per barrel. Price of COMEX gold went up $14.91.70 per ounce to $14.93 per ounce. So far, the Dow Jones is up 14.76%. NASDAQ is up 21.92%. S&P 500 is up 19.12%. Russell 2000 is up 13.86%. Global Dow is up 11.39%, and the federal funds or the benchmark interest rate is at 1.75% to 2%. So overall, the stock market is still doing great this year. We're almost 10 months through the year, and we're doing very, very well. We're entering month number 11, which is November next month, and S&P 500 is up 19.12%. So it's safe to say that we'll finish off the year pretty strong. We'll finish off the year much higher, about 20% higher than last year. So that's great news. That means the stock market is doing well. The economy is doing well. Everything is good. Everything is peachy. And I still don't believe there's any sign of a recession in the near future, at least within the next 2 years. Within the next 5 years, there may be one, but within the next 2 years, I don't believe we're anywhere close to recession. So that just gives you some perspective when it comes to the markets, is that we're still doing pretty well. No need to panic. This is definitely not the time to sell or anything like that. This is, just it's really cruise control from here on out. So first, I would like to welcome everyone to WJT 98.3 FM, your voice and music, your station, and welcome to the show Money Talks, where all we talk is money. If you would like to chime in, we are live on Facebook. You can check out my Facebook page at Jeff Badu, JEFFBADU. You can also call into the studio line at 773-942-7167. Once again, 773-942-7167. If you're ever interested in finding out more information about anything that I talk about, any questions or anything, you can check out my personal website, which is jeffbadu.com, JEFFBADU.com. I share tons and tons of resources, the streamings, so when we record it live on the radio, Also, it's always streamed live on Facebook, which also gets posted on my YouTube channel and ultimately ends up on my website. So in case you ever miss anything, or you feel like you're missing anything, you can just go to the website and recap all the information that's there. It's free, 100% free, no charge, nothing like that. Like to give a shout out to everyone that's tuning in. I see Seth Thomas, I see Abib, I see Dion Landry. Definitely appreciate the shout out. And then Derek Fleming as well. Now let's talk about how do you buy a home, essentially. What I'm about to do is I'm about to lay out some steps. If you're looking to buy a home, you're interested to see what's the process like to actually buy a home. I'm basically going to go through that right now. So there's really nothing like owning your own home. As when I was a renter, I always felt this burden on my shoulder for some reason. But when I owned my own home, I just felt like it was my own space, and it was just nice knowing that I actually owned this piece of property. Anytime you own something, you tend to take better care of it. Hopefully, you're taking better care of it. So when I owned a home, or when I got my first home 3 years ago, it was one of the best experiences of my life. To this day, I own the same home. So the home that I bought 3 years ago, still in that same place. And it's been very enjoyable. Haven't had any real issues. Only thing that I've had was maybe some plumbing, which of course is one of the biggest things of a house. But other than that, there's no real issues with the house. It was bought pretty much nice, great condition, and it's been serving me well. It's a great neighborhood. But overall, owning your own home or buying a home there's nothing really like it. And keep in mind, when I talk about this doesn't just have to be for your own home, but this can relate to investment properties as well. So this one I'm going to talk about it more so from a homeowner's perspective, and then I'll throw in some investment terms as well. I would say it is a great time to buy a home now because of the fact that the market has slowed down a little bit. Also, interest rates are dropping. So the fact that interest rates are dropping means that it's a good time to get locked into something. I would say we're still in a fairly decent buyer's market. Depends on where you are, of course, but I think in Chicago you still have a lot of leeway as a buyer, so you can still get a lot of good deals out there. And then home prices aren't too high, especially in Chicago right now. They're not skyrocketed. They're still pretty reasonable prices. And then when it comes to owning a home, there's tax benefits. You have property tax, the ability to deduct the property taxes on your property, mortgage interest, PMI or private mortgage insurance potentially. If you own it as a business, you can deduct home office and things of that nature. Overall, real estate is one of the biggest tax shelters in the world. I personally love real estate. I preach it as an investment strategy. It's definitely great to have. And in my opinion, when you're renting something, you're virtually throwing money away. For me, I like it when I'm invested into something and I still have it at the end of the day. So when you're renting, you're essentially throwing money away, and essentially when you're owning a home, it allows you to capture some of they call it time value of money benefits that's out there. Now, rent prices are very high as well. In Chicago, rent prices can be quite high because everybody's looking to rent. The demand for renters is extremely high right now, especially in Chicago. And part of the reasons why you should buy a home or you should think about buying a home is because they have down payment assistance programs that allow you to put as little as $1,000 down or so, or 1% of the purchase price. They can fund up to about $15,000 of your down payment, especially for your first home. So they have great programs out there. They call it the down payment assistance programs. If you need more information, talk to your lenders, talk to your realtors. They'll definitely be able to help you find this free money that's out there. Location, of course, is key. You always have to make sure you buy a property that's in a decent location, at least one that's projected to be good, not just now but also in the future. And then I would say the ability to buy a home also locks you into a fixed mortgage payment. usually. So you can be locked into a mortgage payment when you buy a home. And then another reason why I like buying homes is because some people don't think of it this way, but it's very flexible. You have the opportunity to turn this property into a rental property or sell it, which allows you to take advantage of things like the homeowner's exclusion, 1031 exchanges, things of that nature. Basically ways to create tax-free income now and potentially for the rest of your life. You always have the option to refinance, which allows you to pull out some cash from that home, or the equity you have in that home. That's great. So as you're paying your mortgage payments, you're building equity in the home. And at a certain point in time, whenever you want, you can start taking out some of that equity if you truly so desire. And then you can also benefit from the property value increase. One thing to note is I did write a book called The Legendary Asset, 6 Reasons Why You Should Own Real Estate. And I talk about the 6 reasons why somebody, why owning. And now on that one, I mainly talk about investment or investment real estate. So by owning investment real estate, it allows you the opportunity to really thrive and take advantage. There's so many advantages. Now let's talk about the process to actually buying a home. So we're going to talk all the way down from the basics, from very first step, what you should be doing, versus the very last step. First step is a credit score. You really have to know what your credit is before you buy a home. Before you go out and buy a home, please make sure that you know what your credit score is before you go out to do it. And you can get, in order to find out your credit score, they have free sites out there such as Credit Karma. You can also get free credit reports, from each of the major reporting agencies such as Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. I would say try to stay above a 600 credit score. All you need is as little as a 580 credit score can now get you a home through the FHA loan or Federal Housing Administration loan, but try to stay above 600. When you're about to buy a home, try to get your credit as high as you possibly can. And then start building credit early. When it comes to building credit, it's about doing it early. I would say if you don't have a credit card and you're disciplined, then go out and get one credit card. Use it one time every month. Pay it off and keep doing that, and you eventually start building your credit. The reason why you want to have decent or good credit is because it helps keep your mortgage payments lower than someone who doesn't have good credit. So although you can get into this FHA loan with 580 or more credit score, you might benefit more by having a 600 or 700, because ultimately that's what the pre-approval is based upon. So your rate can be low or lowered if you have a better credit score. The next thing you need to know, so once you know your credit score, the next thing you need to calculate or sit down and find out, you have your credit score number, let's say 650. Let's just say you have a 650 credit score. Next thing to know is your debt to income ratio. Debt to income ratio is a simple calculation of how much you owe, so your monthly debt payments, divided by how much you make on a monthly basis. So if you have student loans, if you have a car loan, calculate all those monthly payments. Remember, these are debt payments, not just bills. So strictly debt payments divided by your income. One advice with this is try to eliminate credit card debt. So remember, when I said get one credit card and pay it off every month, especially as you're buying a home, please try to keep your balance to a very minimal. If anything, you avoid paying interest on that credit card. And also, other major payday loans and things of that nature. Just try to keep it to a minimum. That's just my recommendation. And then I would say don't worry too much about student loans, because especially somebody who's just starting out, it's not the worst loan in the world, especially if the interest payments are low. You don't necessarily have to continuously worry about that. But basically, you take your debt, your monthly debt payments, you divide it by your monthly income, and that's your debt to income ratio. The higher the ratio, the lower your chances are of getting the mortgage, and potentially the higher your interest rate will be as well. The rule of thumb is try to stay below 43%. If anything, try to stay below 30%. So basically, if your monthly debt payments are, or if your monthly income is $1,000, then try to stay below, $300 or below as far as your debt payments. Basically, the reason why a bank wants you to have this number as low as possible is because you'll probably be able to pay the mortgage on time. So once you know your credit score, and then once you know your debt to income ratio, you need to move on to the next step, which is finding a lender. Before you contact a realtor, you need to make sure you get pre-approved or find a lender. If you need a lender, if you need a reference, a resource, I can provide you with them. So try to get pre-approved. You should do this before you go out to search the home, especially if you're buying an investment property such as a 3 to 4 unit. And by the way, my advice when you're starting out, this is where the investor comes out of me. My advice is to try to get a 3 to 4 unit as your first home. The condos and the single families are nice, but that's not what's truly going to build you wealth. These 3 to 4 units, that's where the true wealth is created, where you live in one unit and you rent out the other units. But anyhow, anything you decide to do, make sure you get pre-approved. You talk to a lender. The lender is going to set up a call with you, and they're going to talk to you for about maybe 15 or so, maybe 30 minutes, just to ask you what type of home you want, what's your credit, or they'll run your credit, what's your income looking like, and all that good stuff. And what they'll do is they'll generate what's called a pre-approval letter. This pre-approval letter is what allows you to see how much you can afford as the home. So if you're asking yourself, oh, how much should I pay? Or when people ask me, how much should I pay for this home? Or how much should I look at when it comes to buying a home? I tell them, wait till you see a pre-approval letter. Because I can tell you, okay, you should target $200,000, $300,000. Usually I use the $100,000 rule. For every unit that's in that house, I usually use $100,000 times that number of units. So if it's a 4 unit, I usually don't go above $400,000. Depends on which market, which area you're in, of course. But that's just the rule of thumb that I use when it comes to investing. But overall, if you're about to buy an investment property that's a 3 to 4 unit, I try to aim for as high of a pre-approval as possible, because the higher, the better quality you're probably going to get for the property. And when it comes to real estate, it's about quality. It's not about, oh, I'm going to have a $500,000 loan. Well, what if this property is making you $6,000 a month consistently? So for me, I like to aim for the highest pre-approval amount, and I'm going to take full advantage of the pre-approval amount. So one thing to note is your down payment is not necessarily part of your pre-approval amount. So basically, whatever the pre-approval amount is at your down payment, if you want to stay conservative, you can just use the pre-approval amount. But technically, this is the loan amount, the amount that they'll loan you in order to buy this house. One thing to know is pre-approval does not mean that you actually got the house or you won the house. You still have to go through closing, and you still have to go through the process of getting fully final approved. It's just like a credit card where you received a pre-approval. It doesn't mean you got the card. It just means that you've demonstrated that you have what it takes to get the card. So once you've contacted a lender and you've gotten your pre-approval letter, the next person to go to is a realtor, a real estate agent. These are the folks that go out to search for houses. You don't pay them anything as a buyer, 99% of the time. The seller is the one that pays for the realtor. So this is a free resource. Same thing with the lender. Now you will pay them at a certain point in the form of origination fees and all that good stuff. But for now, let's just think about them as free resources. You don't pay them anything up front. So real estate agents or realtors are free for the buyer. The seller is the one that pays the commission. And what they do, their job is to help you find the home that you want. Real simple. They'll work night and day, sweat, blood, and tears, all that good stuff, just to find you that dream home you want. My advice, please stop trying to be as picky as possible. Make their lives a little easier and set criteria, set boundaries, set barriers, and all that stuff. Don't just look at any house you see on the block. Your time is valuable, their time is valuable. It's best if you both don't waste it. So ultimately, the real estate agent will help you select the home by going through the search process. You know, they'll help you negotiate. So they'll help you with the negotiation aspect of the property. You know, so as far as offerings, there'll be offers left and right here and there. They'll help you navigate through that process of what to offer and all that good stuff. Realtors have access to very top secret information known as the MLS, or multi-listing service. MLS essentially has the data, or what you need to know about a house. You know, you can find comparables or comps when a house was built. Now, some of this you can find easily online, but the MLS is truly what gives you the data that you need in order to analyze this property and see if it's a good decision or not. Now, one of my segments, I'll go through how to analyze a rental property. You know, so I'll go through some of the things that I look for when I'm looking at a rental. So that's definitely a segment that I do plan to do in the near future. And then the realtor, if you don't have team members such as an attorney or a lender, of course you should have a lender before you find a realtor, but some people go the other way around. They will help you find these people. So realtors are great resources. My realtor, you know, when she helped me buy my first home, she provided me with so many people. The same inspector that I used for when I bought my home, you know, 3 years ago, I use that same inspector today. So it's very, very important. By the way, my inspector is actually the father of Tone Capone, who was one of the famous, you know, radio personalities. So essentially, she was able to help me connect to people like that. Now, once you've identified a real estate agent, then the next step is to go out and find the home. It's time to select the home. Now, this is the part that can get very, very tricky. Remember, try not to be picky. When it comes to real estate, it's about making solid, effective decisions that are best for you and everyone involved. Now, this preference is based off this home is where you want to live or where you want to invest. So it's your preference. You get to choose. So you tell the real estate agent, hey, find me a home, find me a 3-unit building in this zip code for these prices and under these conditions. They'll find something like that for you. One thing to note is, although the real estate agent, and this is with anything in life, although the real estate agent is going to be proactive, they're going to, you know, bleed blood, sweat, and tears and all that, you have to be proactive too. You have to tell them, hey, I want this property in this area for this price. The real estate agent is not just going to pick a property for you. You got to tell them what you want. And then they send you the properties for you to pick and all that good stuff. Now they can give you advice saying, hey, they found out that this market was better. So just something really to keep in mind when it comes to real estate. Now, another thing to keep in mind too is that, remember, always do your research. Always do your own research. Always go ahead and find things on your own as well. You know, you don't have to butt heads with the real estate agent or anything, but always do your own independent research. As a matter of fact, my first home, I was the one that actually found it. Believe it or not, we were going through so many battles, there was just so much going on. And then at the end, I ended up finding a property. And then what you also want to do is you want to schedule a viewing of interested properties. So once your real estate agent has picked out 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, how many ever properties they send you, you have to go in there and say, hey, I'm interested in this. You start scheduling the showings. My advice, this is $1 million advice right here that I'm giving you, is to make sure that if you see a property you like, please see it the same day or within the 24-hour period. If you can't see it, have somebody else go see it for you. Because the thing I've learned about real estate, if that property is truly a good property that you really want, guess what? Somebody else probably wants it. Believe it or not, the time that you look at it will probably be the same time somebody else looks at it. And that property probably was sitting for about a week and nobody's seeing it. And next thing you know, you're interested now. Everybody else is interested. It's just that I don't know what they call it, but it's that attraction effect. Once somebody becomes interested in something, everybody wants to be interested in it. You know, so especially for investment properties. Remember, you want to make the right decision. You want to make sure the property is right for you. But you get a whole nother 15 or so days to fully analyze the property. So in the initial phase, look at it. Make sure it's something you want. Do your eyeball inspections and all that good stuff. Run your numbers. But this is not the time to be in la-la land. Picking, I want this, I want that, I want this kitchen, I want that. That's not the game of real estate. You can do all those things later on. When it comes to buying a home, you have to be decisive. You have to be an effective decision maker. If not, you'll spend a day thinking about it, 2 days thinking about it. Next thing you know, somebody's already got an offer on the property. And I thought about it. I was like, man, I advise so many clients on they call it the house hacking strategy. I'm like, why isn't it working for some clients? You know, why is it that they find a property, next thing you know, it gets snatched up? I'm like, well, they're probably not acting fast enough. And I tell them this, like, hey, although you want a great property, nobody's ever going to find the perfect property. It doesn't exist. You know, there's the good enough property that can get you what you need. So it's very important that once you see something you like, you go get it. And in reality, that's how life should be anyway. You see something you really like, it looks perfect, you just got to go look at it and confirm it, then go see it the same day. And I understand we're busy, you know, we got jobs, kids, whatever it is we're so busy doing nowadays. If we're making an important decision like this, especially as an investment, then we shouldn't be too busy just to pick the investment that we really want. So that's just 2 cent advice right there. Well, actually, $1 million advice. It's very important to not be picky when it comes to real estate. This is not a picky game. It's not a game where you go to the store and you look at the type of clothes you want, the size, this and that and this. That's not the type of game we're playing here. We're playing a game called decisiveness. You see it, it looks good, you pick it. You know, that's the type of game. So if you're a picky person, real estate is not the game for you. You know, just sorry about that. Real estate is a game of decisiveness. You know, so ultimately that's what a real estate agent does. They'll help you schedule the viewings. You go and see the property, and then you put in an offer. Not only do you see the property the same day, but you also make sure you put in an offer within 24 hours if you really like the property. You know, some properties, to be honest, I put in an offer before I even go and physically see it. Of course, I run my numbers. I do the market analysis. I look at all the pictures. I do everything. But some properties are so good to the point that as soon as I see it, I just make the offer right then and there. And then I say, okay, can you please give me about a day? I'll even turn in a deposit if you need me to, or earnest money. Because that's the type of game real estate is. This is sweet investments. You go out and you go see it. Of course, cash is king. So if you have cash, it's better to have cash than to not have cash. Cash offers will always attract more sellers than anything. But, you know, as your first home, you probably don't have the cash to fully buy a property outright. Not only will you not have it, it's probably not the most financially intelligent thing to do anyway. And yeah, I mean, basically, if you have an idea of what you want, it's your home. You go out and buy it and put in an offer. To me, it's best to buy a home during the winter months because sellers are a little lenient because not too many people are looking around. So for me, I found my best properties in the wintertime because the market tends to be a little down. The spring is when things heat up, gets a little more expensive, but ultimately more properties are also on the market. When I bought my first property, it was actually during the springtime, although I started in the wintertime and lost out on some properties. You know, and sometimes it just might be that everything happens for a reason. You know, maybe God just said, hey, this wasn't your property. So you remember, the key here is don't try to push for the perfect property. You will not find the perfect property, a property that has every single piece of quality you need. That's not the game of real estate. You should, of course, find what it is you want because it's a big investment. But don't be so picky. You can fix some of these things. Like, you can easily, if you don't like the way a countertop looks, negotiate with the seller saying, hey, I really like this house, but I don't like the way the countertop looks. So can we negotiate maybe a fee that we can redo these countertops. Sometimes the seller will redo them for you. Countertops are not that hard to put on. It might look nice, it might look like it's, it's hard, but it's not. A countertop is not really that hard. You take the thing off and put the countertop. Maybe you want backsplash. Easy fix. Some of these things are so easy that you think it's so expensive, but they're so cheap and so easy to install that you'll be like, wow, I lost out on that property because of that. Some people might go in there because they don't like the furniture. And I'm like, well, you're not even getting this furniture in this house because they're just doing it for staging purposes. So I tell people when it comes to real estate, it's not a game of pickiness. It's a game of finding the right house at the right price. And then you do all the stuff that you want to do to the house. So that's what anything, the job, the perfect job. You don't go in a job interview asking for a salary. You go in a job interview to try to get the job, and then you negotiate the salary, and then you work your tail off to get an increase and all that stuff. So that's just my advice when it comes to that. But so that's the selection process. The next step is you got to put in an offer. Make an offer that's meaningful for a desired property. Don't try to be cheap. Don't try to lowball, especially during hot months. This is not the game where you're pinching pennies or anything like that. It's a serious game that we're playing here. So this is not the time to be nickel and diming anybody. You can, of course, negotiate where you can. So take that advice with a grain of salt. But ultimately, this is not the game where you're penny pinching or you're just trying to get dollars and cents off of the property. So just something to keep in mind there. So make an offer for the desired property. Price versus value significantly applies here because you're not just aiming for the cheapest property, but you're aiming for the best property at the right price. So value beats price any day of the week. Hopefully your offer gets accepted. There's really 3 things that can happen. Your offer can get accepted, it can get declined, or counter offered. So just something to keep in mind. Hopefully your offer will be accepted, but if it's not, it might be counter offered, or you might be in a battle called highest and best, worst battle in the world, where basically they say, hey, give me your best price, and I'll let you know by the end of today if you got it or not. I lost out on a few properties because of this highest and best war. So ultimately you have to put in an offer, and then once you put in an offer and it gets accepted, here's the beauty of it. You get to closing. Closing is my favorite part of the whole process, although it's one of the most stressful parts. Closing means you've got the property. They just need to do the final legwork, the final paperwork. It's like when you're at a car dealership, you got the car you want, and they're just, you're just waiting around for the documents to get finalized. It is the most stressful step next to the selection process. To me, the closing is pretty stressful because it's so many documents back and forth. I remember I was at work having to pick up calls because of this. It takes a minimum of about 2 weeks to a month to complete the closing process. If you're with a traditional lender, it will definitely take you about a month, so 30 days or so. Lender will ask you for a ton of documents, W-2 forms, 1099s, 1040s or tax returns, bank statements, all that good stuff. And then what you have to do is you have to do a home inspection, and you have to do an appraisal, or the lender orders an appraisal. The appraisal is actually one of the most critical steps, because if your property does not appraise at least at the loan amount, then you're screwed. Your deal is done. You have to either do a reappraisal or go out and find another property. I actually got screwed over. I've been screwed over plenty of times in real estate. Trust me, plenty of times, countless of buildings. So I've learned. You're taking advice from somebody who's learned or who's felt the pain that that somebody would go through when it comes to buying real estate. You got to be patient in real estate. You have to be patient in this process. Real estate is patience. Now, real estate is decisiveness though on your part, but as far as other people's parts, you just got to be patient. Just let the time, let people do what they have to do to get you this home. So just be patient. You'll get the home. No need to panic or anything like that. No need to overreact or anything like that. Just be patient. Make sure your closing costs are in the bank. Don't touch your closing costs or you will be denied for the loan. So if the bank tells you need this amount cash to close, they need to verify it. Make sure the cash to close is there. You know, if they say you need $15,000 to close, just leave the $15,000 in there for 30 days after closing. You do whatever it is you need to do with the money. And me personally, I've had to pull out several times during closing because of some issues, either with the buyer, the seller, and things of that nature. To almost every residential real estate transaction is the buyer, which is you. You have the buyer's realtor. You have, or your realtor. You have the buyer's lawyer or your lawyer. You have the buyer's lender, the person giving you the money. The buyer's appraiser. So that's one side of the transaction. Then you have the seller. The seller's realtor, usually. The seller's attorney or lawyer. And then the lender's appraiser. Usually those are the parties to the transaction. Lots and lots of parties. So it can get really, really, really sticky when it comes to closing. Hopefully you get to the closing table. Once you're at closing, everything is cruise control. You just got to think about moving in that day, getting your keys, signing documents, make sure you have the checks ready and all that good stuff. But that's the day really to just relax and enjoy the process. It might take long. It might take an hour. It might take 2 hours. I've had a closing where I sat in there for 8 hours because documents needed, just a lot of documents. But just be patient. Enjoy it, relax, kick out your phone, check emails, do whatever. Just enjoy it. You pay your closing costs, your down payment. They hand you the keys and voila. You've officially bought your first home or second home or third home. And that's the process to buying a home. Step one is knowing your credit score. So you have to know your credit. Step two is you have to know your debt to income ratio. Step 3 is you get a pre-approval letter from a lender. Step 4, you find a realtor or real estate agent. Step 5, you select the home that you want and you do your analysis. Step 6 is once you find the home of your dreams or the right home for you, you make an offer. Step 7 is the final step is you go to the closing table. You close the home, get the keys, and boom. Sounds much more complicated than buying a car, of course, but it can be all easy if we make it easy. So that's the process to really buying a home, 7-step process or so to buying a home. Don't be too picky. But ultimately, home buying can be stressful, but it's worth it. Buy a home today. Tomorrow is not the time. Today is. Or if not today, set a plan to buy a home. I think everybody should be owning a home. And you will most likely thank your future self if you decide to proceed with these steps. It does take patience. You will be frustrated at times, but it's all worth it. Anything good in life is worth fighting for. Anything good in life is worth going through a process for. So that's ultimately everything. Definitely thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, 773-679-7198. Once again, 773-679-7198. You can reach out to me on Facebook at Jeff Badu. You can go to my personal website, jeffbadu.com. Thank you guys for tuning in to WGHT 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I look forward to continuously delivering you all some content. So thank you guys, and I greatly appreciate it.
Go back to bang bang. Bring your way, dear, gonna be a day. You baby break on your confirm. Say won't pay me, I mean, pay was him. And you will hear my son, go at them. Go at them. Go at